Now, economic tensions between the U.S. and China have escalated, signaling the ongoing trade war will intensify. A new 10% tariff will be placed on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports. This could rise to 25% next year.
Beijing is retaliating with tariffs on $60 billion worth of American goods. President Trump slammed China during an interview before his Las Vegas rally last night.
Well, it's time to take a stand on China. We have no choice. You know, it's been a long time. They've been hurting us, and our farmers are great, and our farmers are starting to do very well again. It's very interesting. But we're putting very, very heavy sanctions and other things on various countries, and we're getting along with some countries. But we've been ripped off, Sean, by the world. All of these countries for years and years, and we can't do it anymore.
All right, for more on this, let's bring in CBSN contributor Willis Sparks. He writes for Signal. That is a newsletter produced by GZERO Media. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So explain to our viewers the direct impact that this trade war is having on American goods, on the American people, and why is this situation so significant? It's interesting to hear the president sort of returning back to that stump speech of we're getting ripped off by the rest of the world.
Well, at the highest level, this is the world's #1 economy waging war, a trade war, on the world's #2 economy. And we're talking about $200 billion worth of Chinese exports now. We're getting into real numbers. And you mentioned that the tariffs are going to be 10%. Unless something changes on January 1st, those 10% tariffs are going to jump to 25%. The object here is to make Chinese goods more expensive for American consumers, and therefore American consumers won't buy them, and that will have an impact on the Chinese economy. But as you noted in your question, there's obviously an impact on American consumers as well. Up to this point, we had really been talking about an impact on U.S. companies that needed spare parts and raw materials. But now we're actually moving into consumer goods. We're actually moving into computers and appliances and things that working class Americans actually spend money on. Now, the impact is going to be felt slowly because prices are not going to rise overnight necessarily, and people aren't necessarily immediately going to blame President Trump for the fact that the TV set they want to buy just became more expensive. But over time, we're seeing a slow ratcheting up of pressure. The Chinese have retaliated, and this is going to have not just an impact on the U.S. and Chinese economies eventually, it's going to have an impact on the global economy because of supply chains and everybody else's, the residual impact that hits the rest of the world on the rise in prices on a lot of these goods.
I think earlier this week, the Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said something to the effect that, don't worry, China's running out of bullets, essentially. Like, they can't keep sort of offering another tat for each tit for tat. But it certainly doesn't seem like it.
No,
so
they're not.
Why do you think China's not backing down?
Well, first of all, they're not backing down because they're not running out of bullets. Yes, they're running out of things they can put tariffs on. That's true, because the Chinese don't buy as much American stuff as Americans buy of Chinese stuff. But there are plenty of other bullets that the Chinese have. They can make life very difficult for American companies that are trying to do business in China, and they can do a variety of other things that will have an impact on the American economy. The reason why the Chinese are not backing down at this point, there's several reasons. First of all, in the clip that you played of President Trump, he's saying the reason why this war is going on is because China's not treating us fairly. This is another country that's just being unfair in their trade practices, and we're going to correct that. This is obviously not how the Chinese see this. The Chinese can go back to the Barack Obama foreign policy of pivot to Asia, and they can look at what Trump is saying about what they're going to do to the Chinese economy, and they think this isn't about fairness. This is about the U.S. trying to stunt China's growth because we're a big competitor for them. This is about them trying to deny us the technologies that are going to be central to our economic growth in the future. This is about China trying to contain us, or U.S. trying to contain us the way they contained the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Now, also, there's the fact that the Chinese are thinking this is hurting us, but we've got options here. If the Chinese government needs to inject money into the Chinese economy to jumpstart growth, they can do that. They've done it before. Huge amounts of money, an option not available to the U.S. If they wanted to let the value of their currency drift a little bit lower, which would lower the price of some of these goods, offsetting the effect of the tariffs, they could do that. They say they're not going to do that, but they have that option as well. And as I've said on this program before, Xi Jinping is looking at President Trump and he's going, I don't have midterms coming up.
That's the newsflash.
Right.
I don't have Robert
That's
Mueller
the newsflash.
keeping me awake at night. I don't have people in my ear all day about, hey, your policies are hurting me. I don't really have to listen to that in the same way that Trump does. I can play for time. Let's see what happens in the midterms.
Right.
Let's see if Trump is weaker. Let's see if Robert Mueller starts taking a more direct bite out of President Trump. Then maybe he'll be more willing to compromise. Then there's room for a deal to end this.
And by the way, as is pointed out in the Signal newsletter, this trade war is only going to affect the GDP of China by about 0.5%. Right?
There are a lot of different estimates, but yes, the consensus seems to be that, yeah, the impact on China's GDP in the near term is actually completely manageable.
Yeah.
Again, and you can consider the fact the Chinese government can inject money anytime they want to. They can help industries that are being hurt. They can move money around in a way that you can't do in the American system without it becoming a political issue, like bailing out soybean farmers or whatever.
Right.